So the first one is coming up here. DJFAR. And Dr. Macklin, did you want to make a comment or two about what the initiative was for this? Because this one, I think, was combined. There's two different edits. The edits in green reflect BCLP's review, and then the edits in red are the MSBA updates.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. I think Kevin was gonna.
Yeah, I was just saying for the MSBA updates, it's relatively small language, but it's just clarifying things around some of the changes that have happened with federal funding. So just making sure the language in there matches some of the pieces that have changed with federal funding on the MSBA front.
Hey, no questions on this. When we get to the DE,
Yeah, I was just looking to see if I had green edits on my version in Diligent. I don't think I saw it there.
That's what I was gonna say. I only have red. I don't have green.
Is that right?
I had green.
We'll go back up.
I have some that were red, some that were green.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, the reds were crossouts. I'll take that back. But then I had green also. You
And,
don't have the green additions?
On the public facing site, if you go to the public facing version of Diligent, it does have the green as well as the red.
Oh, okay. So ours just doesn't?
Mhm.
Should we log into the public or should we log out of the board site for this meeting then so that we can see the
They're up on the screen.
They're on the screen.
Yeah, can you see them here?
I can. I'm just a bit easier to read on the big screen when it's pulled up. Plus, I can be the one who's scrolling through, so bear with me.
But I'm pulling up what was in your packet. So if you go within Diligent to this meeting, you should be able to see exactly what I'm displaying.
Yeah, I'm doing that and it's not green.
It's not showing up in the same way for me either. There's red, but no green, and I am certain that I'm not colorblind. I can see.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there were if the changes were red too, but you're kind of scrolling a little fast. So
Sorry about that. Well, our first try in Diligent, I'm wondering why that is, because I'm pulling up the same thing.
So we are, just to clarify, we are looking at DJFA red right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got no green. I have underlined red. I wonder if that's
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. So if you're in the public facing
we go to
site,
page one,
underlined
please?
green are additions.
Yeah, I'll take it
As a
back.
board member,
My
underlined
red
red are
is
the ads.
underlined.
Can we go to just the top of page one just so I can be? Yeah, okay. For me, the what is appearing green on this screen is in fact underlined red. Okay.
thank you.
Any other
If that's
discussion?
true, I don't have any questions then.
Okay.
So IGBCA, both the reg and the policy, I mean, really the big change here is the language around disputes, and that's just matching the new DESI guidance where the homeless dispute resolution process. So it's just capturing that new process.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I had a question because I saw your comment on the side and I was like, is this a question for us? Is this a question for you? Like the commented TG2?
Oh, that's just an edit. There's no question there.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate those.
It says after records and before dispute, MSBA has a whole next section, which isn't an update that we don't, should we?
I think we may have had different files uploaded in our meeting because these appear as edits that looked like it's a TG1. I'm sure that's Tom Giles. So I do wonder if we have different files uploaded.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and the note on that edit, Director Staten, was we chose to leave that out because that wasn't in the policy before.
Okay.
For us, and part of it is some of the challenge of what's in IGBCA at the MSBA level isn't as applicable to us because of the dual system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the reason why we chose to leave that section out.
Which makes sense. I was just making sure it wasn't something that you were wanting us to comment on.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
That's something we need to figure out with Diligent is how we handle internal comments.
Yeah.
And also I'm
I
realizing
like
that
no, I like the internal. I like that. It shows me some reason. It shows me the discussion when I was reading it through it.
like, I'm also realizing that because of at least how the comments showed up on my screen, I think I'm not sure if it's the same document or if it's an earlier draft. I couldn't read the entirety of the text that was being added. I'm going to see if I can maybe download this to see if that shows up. Yeah, no, it just shows up as different. Again, is there any way to look at the section on disputes just so that I can make sure? Because again, I don't think I actually got to read the entire proposed changes to the policy. So yeah, just over there. So I think for me, sorry, bear with me why. I think for me it was cut off. Just wondering if so should I, let me just see. Again, I know this is a diligent process thing. I'm sorry to hold everybody up here, but yeah, homeless students, including unaccompanied youths, are enrolled in and that's where it cuts off for me.
It's strange. Okay. I apologize. We'll have to troubleshoot that, Dr. Asner. I'd like to see what you're seeing.
Yeah, I can email you I downloaded the PDF
Okay.
of what I'm seeing, and that's I was checking to see if I downloaded it, if it would download that way, but it did. So I can.
And President Staten and Vice President Cunha, are you having the same issue?
No, I can see everything.
I can see everything. Now, the issue that I did have is I know this is clearly not technologically appropriate. I still like to print out things. I was trying to print these out. I couldn't do that.
Okay, I can definitely show you how to do that.
Yeah, show me how to do that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see how to print. The only thing the only differences I have right now is that changes are red and not green.
The one thing I do like is that you can put marks on this and it's still on the computer so you can bring up the thing. I like that.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Asner, are you okay with the dispute?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I can read the whole thing. I apologize. I don't want to make a comment without realizing I didn't see the whole thing. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually on the SSD. I logged out and I'm trying to just look at the
public facing site.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Yeah, this is all. Here we go. Okay, there's today's meeting, and we are now looking at. This was IBGCA, right? The actual policy. Okay, yeah. So if I do that, I see the version you guys are saying. Okay.
Okay, great.
So
I think that takes us through all of the MSBA's, Kevin.
Yep.
Great. So what you're going to see here as it relates to DJF and really the purchasing policy when this comes up here and really as it relates to even more in the reg is you're going to see the cross out here of the minority owned, business owned, women owned. And this really came from a part of our district, part of the legal review of our legal team as it relates to just the executive orders and overall federal and state guidance that have been given, really as not to change the composition in these pieces of aspects. And so in the review of policy, you will see these in our purchasing, which is not just limited to our minority and women owned, but also our veterans and disabled owned.
It seems to me like it gutted it.
It did. For those
I
that
mean, are they saying that we need to go this far?
that was the
Not
100% direct.
disagreeing. I just felt that it gutted, well, everything that we were talking about before. And the part that really bothers me on this is we are advocating for individuals who are disabled. We've gutted everything.
We have as far as the guidance as it relates to changing the composition. So remember, this is changing the composition as it relates to purchasing, changing the composition as it relates to bids and requisitions, not being able to use those pieces as making delineations and decisions. It's not doesn't deal with the aspects of students, doesn't deal with the aspects of classrooms, but it's really as it relates to those purchasing and those bidding purposes.
Later, when if this ever comes up again, where we're talking about having individuals who do our janitorial services or our food services, we can no longer give preference to individuals who are disabled.
Well, in our operations,
I'm watching you, Carmen.
in our
I'm watching you
operations,
say
in our
no.
operations area, we have not given preferential treatment to those who are disabled in our operations area. Am I right about that, Kevin? Have we
That's
specifically?
correct. So we historically, like custodial, the last several contracts, we've just gone with what the lowest bidder was. There was not maybe Weeby or SDVE status did not impact the company that we ended up choosing to go with.
Wow. I know we've had conversations on that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think our conversation is correct, Dr. Coonan, has been, can we establish a pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship program for those pieces at the end of the day? And I think those where have been the conversations have been. Really, our policy, and again, states to one of the number one indicators of selecting a bid or through our RFP process is lowest bid. And so those pieces are still standing.
Like custodial services, if you recall, last cycle, we did have Challenge Unlimited, who was one that did bid that has a high concentration of hiring individuals with disabilities. But the challenge was that their bid price ended up being about $1 million more than the other options. And so, in fiscal responsibility and being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, we still defaulted to making a decision based upon what the final dollar amount was. It may have shook out differently if all things were equal, what the policy looked like in the past, but there was such a difference in cost that the district made the decision to go with lowest bid.
And the policy doesn't say that you can't still, you can't work with or qualify with small businesses of those pieces, but just the differential of selection of really bids and RFPs is what it speaks to.
And at one point in time, we had put in language, not the most recent bid with custodial, because that went out during COVID and there were just a lot of challenges during that cycle. But pre-COVID, we did put in some criteria. I believe this was 2 cycles ago, where we wanted the vendor to employ X percentage or be willing to serve as a VSP site or a CBVI site. So those are things that we can still put in place, and that can apply to all companies that we're doing business with. But then it doesn't come back to the status of the company. It comes with the company's bid package, including the things that we're looking for to positively impact our students.
Remember, we talked specifically about to food services on that.
Yeah.
About hiring people.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that one thing. There was one line, and it was an addition. It was the superintendent was instructed to set up a process. I believe I don't see it, but it was for those to create a process where authorized providers are selected for frequent purchases while still monitoring the competitiveness of those providers. Is that process? I looked in the reg. I never saw that process. Do we have a process like that?
So we have a RFP process, and we have a process of selecting our current bidders or our current vendors of what those pieces really mean. I think at the end of the day, when speaking to this, it really means that now the me be, we be, the veteran, the minority owned is not a determination of that process.
Yeah. So if a department's going to make an order, the district has an approved vendor list. So you know that you're going to buy that from Staples or you're going to buy that from Lowe's, that these are the companies that the district has a track record with, that we have a vetted relationship with them. They do a nice job with returns, all of those types of things. And then we also have to check with the Secretary of State's office to make sure that they're in good standing. It's a periodic check. And so any businesses that don't meet that threshold then would leave our approved vendor list. So there is already a process in place
Okay.
that the purchasing department handles for this is the list of approved vendors that departments can order from without requiring additional layers of approval.
Sounds fine to me. I was just saying, I saw in there that said the superintendent is instructed. Is directed, pardon me, isn't directed. And I was trying to figure out why was the superintendent directed?
And this is the reg, Dr. Macklin?
Correct. So this is the reg with the same language that you will see, and it's pretty universal throughout, when you perused it throughout the policy and the reg for both of those pieces as really the part of the review that took place from BLCP.
Do they feel that I feel, especially as we go on, that there are massive changes in our spirit of how we're doing these things. Do they feel that do they feel that this is the appropriate level that they went? I mean, did they go too far? I mean, many of these have been completely gutted.
Well, I will say that when you talk about and not only from BLCP, but when you talk about the recommendation that came from other legal firms as related to the executive orders, other related to other pieces, it's pretty consistent, actually, Dr. Cuneo, and what has been the recommendations that have been taking place, really from the majority of school districts.
Wow.
Yeah, it aligns with what I expected
Mhm.
from my understanding of the executive orders.
Another piece to note is that if you go the last couple cycles where we've updated DJF and DJFR, we haven't pulled over as much from MSBA because our policy went in a different direction than what MSBA had. So we have a lot of the language that we're removing is language that MSBA never had in their policy to begin with. So our policy went further than the recommended guidance from MSBA, and this is just getting us more in line with what MSBA had been recommending prior to the executive orders.
So again, FECR, policy and reg, you'll see the exact same similarities as it relates to what was here redacted and what was here added and what these pieces mean. I guess what I want to focus on is really the language that has been, and President Carmen mentioned it here, changes in the composition. That is the magic words, changes in the composition. So making selections and changes in the composition that are solely based on these categories.
Kind of repetitive, right? In terms of what's actually being
very. I
said.
mean,
It's all the same.
It's all the same. Very.
Yep.
Like I said, you gutted it.
I will note on the construction project front, though, like our new owner project, which we're doing this fiscal year, we had an unprecedented number of contractors bid on that contract. We had 17 that walked the space and actually submitted a bid. And we had a much more diverse representation at that bidding than what we've had in projects in our history. So even with changes for the selection process and our policy, there is an understanding in the building trades segment that special school district is really interested in getting qualified bids from anyone who's capable of doing the project and meets our expectations.
Yeah, well, I suppose elections have consequences. It just means that we have gutted all of fairness and all disability concepts, but so be it.
To your point, Kevin, I am hopeful that the reputation of the district will elicit a diverse group of bids. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What I can confidently say is that we know women can run competent businesses, and so can minorities. And so we will let the best bid win.
That's it.
And these two, I think, Dr. Macklin, is human sexuality to human sexual health only, right?
Correct. That was the oh yeah, IGAEB here. Those were the minor changes that took place here as far as language changes.
I had a question about this one,
Oh, sorry.
and I suppose the reg as well. But just wanted to ask: are we actually making any changes to our curriculum, to our instruction process, or just changing the word sexuality, sexual health here?
It's just the language. Our curriculum is not being this was not a curriculum that was up for review or edit.
Is Wendy on this
Thank you.
conversation? I thought I saw her face.
Yes, sir.
Wendy, years past, I know right now, Planned Parenthood is truly anathema. But they had a great program. They were never allowed to come in. This kind of confirms that they'll never will be allowed to come in.
Wendy, you're on mute.
I would never say never, but we would follow the process if we have any presenters coming into our schools. We have procedures that we would follow if that would happen, if and when that could happen.
That was an issue before. Now it's things have changed. It's not even an issue. Okay.
One sentence here.
Yeah, so again, this is speaks to really the district reflecting the full array and promoting positive learning and development. And again, this is also a review which takes the words that cause scrutiny and a programming and policy to make that change as it relates to the red to the green.
On this one, today, just as I was driving back today, I heard the Supreme Court just recently, today, announced the ruling on on parents being allowed to withdraw kids if they felt it was against their religious beliefs. Will this have any impact on this?
I didn't hear that today. Say that. What was that, Dr. Cuneo?
The one in Texas, the Supreme Court came down today, made a ruling that the parent can withdraw a child from a book, a study, whatever, if it is against their religious beliefs.
But that was only if the parent hadn't been notified and given the option to self-select out.
That one's going to have some far-reaching effects.
So essentially, I think Dr. Cuneo's question is, before we ask students to participate in programs, are we getting parental permission?
Yeah, and that exists in some content areas, such as what we were just looking at earlier in the sexual instruction component. But right now, that doesn't exist in all content areas. In Missouri, the last couple of cycles, there's been legislation that's been seeking to make that universal, that parents can opt out of any pieces of the curriculum, but that doesn't currently exist in Missouri. We don't have a law that matches the law that you see in Texas. So we're not there yet with the ability to opt out. At the same time, our curriculum is available and publicly available for families to view. Every one of our courses, the full curricula,
Okay.
is available, and we'll work with families if there's concerns about specific access, specific areas. But because the nature of what we do, in career and technical education and in the special education settings in which we teach, much of what we have are things I don't think would be something that a family would deem objectionable on any of those grounds.
We have never had anybody asked to opt out, have we? I can't remember any.
No.
Okay,
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, not that I can remember.
okay.
Then, Kevin, we pulled KBR,
Yes,
Public
correct.
Information Program, because there's additional legal consideration. So that'll be moved to the August 8th meeting.
Correct.
And I think the only other item briefly is a question that Director Beaver had related to JOR. And what we determined is we would bring this to the policy committee. I believe she may have spoken to you, President Staten, about this. Under the limited directory information section, C, she was requesting that the policy committee at least discuss rephrasing this to exclude ICE. And I know Chief Ander, you said that would need to go under legal review.
Yeah, we'd want to get legal review on that because this limited directory information, that's FERPA language. So what's in here right now aligns with what's in the law. And so I would want to get some consultation from outside legal of, can we carve out a governmental agency when we're including some governmental agencies, but not all governmental agencies?
I mean, my comment here is it might be, I mean, we should, of course, consult legal, but it might be more helpful to say as required by the law, you know, by local, state, federal law. So that if it's not required by law, then presumably it's at the discretion of the school.
And since
If there's a judicial warrant, then it's required by law for us to provide the information. Yeah.
And since the student, it would also need to match what our partner districts are doing, since our students are all registered in the partner districts in order to access the services that we provide.
Great.
So for that one, Dr. Macklin, do you want that to go to Tomacheks or would you like that to go to Brian Cave?
That can go to Tomacheks.
Okay.
Because Sotul?
Yeah. Okay. New name.
Okay, yeah.
Same
Okay.
people.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys.
I think that's it.
Yep. And then in August, we've got the A's and the D's. So buckle up. There's a lot of them.
All righty.